Welcome back to the Mindset Project podcast, the podcast which gives you the tools to develop a strong mindset and gives you that daily dose of positivity. I hope you're all doing well, staying fit and staying safe. This episode will be all about sleep, and I hope it will be quite interesting as I will delve into what it actually is and the science behind sleep and the effect it has on our body and of course our mind. I have done a lot of research into this and I have a little bit of prior knowledge from my own experiences working with a psychologist. This kind of rolls into the last episode of routine, as sleep, I would hope, would be part of your routine, because if not, then you might not be feeling a wee bit tired. And believe it or not, we actually spend about a third of our day doing it, give or take a few hours. And what's funny is that although most of us will probably know what the benefits of sleep are, a lot of scientists don't actually know why we do it, and the biological functions is still a mystery. Like, when did humans just decide, let's lie down, close our eyes and kind of like sleep or like rest? But we use sleep for many reasons, and the obvious one being rest. It also has a direct impact on your performance, and you'll probably know that getting enough sleep will aid your recovery. Our mood also is affected by sleep, and it includes exacerbating depression, anxiety and other mental health conditions. Sleep also has an impact on our energy levels, our quality of life and our general health. Research has shown that when you lack sleep, it increases your chances of developing diabetes, high blood pressure, cardiovascular disease and other health complications. It is also very important in a number of brain functions, including how our neurons communicate with one another. And believe it or not, your brain and body are very active throughout your sleep, which will be discussed later. A lot of studies have also shown that when we sleep, our brains actually help get rid of toxins within our body, and it affects all sorts of bodily tissues and functions from your heart to your immune system, our lungs, and you kind of get the idea that it is a really important function of our body. But the problem is normally the thing that people abuse or don't get enough. And what I mean by abuse is that they don't utilise sleep properly, if that makes sense. So who are the key players involved with sleep? Well, the first structure that plays a role in our sleep is the hypothalamus. Now, this is a small peanut-sized structure deep inside the brain, which has a lot of nerve cells which act as control centres for sleep and arousal. Inside the hypothalamus is the suprachiasmatic nucleus, or SCN for short, and this is just a cluster of cells that receive information on light exposure from your eyes and control your behavioural rhythm. Blind people can maintain some ability to detect light and are able to adapt their sleep cycle. Next we have the brain stem, and this is at the base and communicates with the hypothalamus to control the move between being awake and being asleep. The brain stem also plays a key role in the REM sleep, and it's responsible for causing our muscles to relax in our sleep. The thalamus relays information from the senses to the cerebral cortex, the region which converts short-term memory into long-term memory. It also creates images, sounds and sensations which are responsible for dreams. Our pineal gland, often termed our third eye, is located in the middle of the two hemispheres of the brain. It increases the production of melatonin, which is what helps us to go to sleep when lights go out. And the basal front brain is located, as the name suggests, at the front and base of the brain. This structure helps promote sleep and wakefulness. It also releases adenosine, and when we drink caffeine, the caffeine actually blocks the effects of adenosine, which is why it's hard to get to sleep when you're on caffeine. And finally, the amygdala is an almond-shaped structure which possesses our emotions and becomes active during REM. So that is a very quick overview of the different structures which have a role in sleep. And I actually find the brain really fascinating and all it works together. And I remember when I was doing my biology exams in school, it was the topic which I memorised everything, but as usual it never came up in any of the questions. So getting back to the main topic, a lot of the time, whether we are athletes travelling for events or training, or someone who has been putting in long shifts at work, or someone suffering from anxiety or depression, in most cases there is an issue with their sleep which has an effect on their performance, and as previously mentioned, affecting their overall health. Poor sleep is clearly part of the problem, which means the opposite is going to be the solution: better sleep. And improved sleep patterns help improve our performance and our health. And a quick fact, the greatest swimmer of all time, Michael Phelps, would normally get around 10 to 11 hours of sleep per day. This just highlights how much of an impact having good sleep has on us. So I've kind of made it clear that lack of sleep obviously has a detrimental effect on us, but what actually happens when we don't get enough sleep? When we don't sleep or get enough of it, our metabolism takes a big hit. And for anyone that is unsure what metabolism is, it is simply just a collective term given to the chemical processes that go inside our bodies. And our body's glucose metabolism can slow down by nearly 40%, and on top of this, levels of cortisol, the stress hormone, is known to rise. This is important because our body's main source of energy is in fact glucose, and it is stored in the form of glycogen. And when we sleep less, this glycogen store decreases, which obviously means our energy source also decreases. And this is very important if you are an athlete, because you will be wanting as much energy as possible to perform at an optimal level. This increase in cortisol is thought to be linked to memory impairment, mood, physical appearance, and quite importantly, insulin resistance. Now, insulin resistance is when your cells cannot take in glucose, which is obviously our energy source. And in an earlier episode, I mentioned that when we are under stress for a prolonged period of time and exposed to cortisol, it leads to wear and tear of our body. So higher levels of cortisol can affect the rate of repair and growth in athletes and just the general population. And this is quite detrimental because it means there's going to be a poor response to an intense workout, which could lead to overtraining, injury and possibly burnout. And I use the comparison to athletes because I think it's far easier to see the impact of lack of sleep has on our body and our overall being, because obviously athletes are, people that we kind of aspire to be, because obviously we think they're really healthy and have a very good lifestyle. So I think when you look at sleep from the athlete's perspective, it's far easier to kind of see the impact it has, if that makes sense. So far you'll probably have come to the conclusion that getting enough sleep will have an effect on your performance, whether that is performance in a sporting context or just improving the performance of your day-to-day tasks. Now, Cherry Ma of the Stanford University Sleep Disorders Clinic and Research Laboratory has been researching sleep patterns in relation to athletic performance of Stanford University athletes for years. Her research has shown that getting more sleep leads to positive performance in sport for a wide range of athletes. And in 2009, she authored a study which followed the women's tennis team for 5 weeks, and the aim was to try and get an extra hour of sleep per night. What she found was that those who had got more sleep or increased their sleep time had actually been able to run faster sprints and take more accurate shots. And in another study, she found that getting extra sleep over multiple weeks improved performance for athletes in the swimming teams and basketball teams. So if you're listening and happen to be an athlete of some description, make sure that you're getting enough sleep, because it could really change your performance for the better. Her work is some of the first in the field of study looking at relationship between sleep and athletic performance. And this is important for student athletes as well, because it is often the case that they have very busy schedules, whether that with classes, travelling to and from competitions, or training and extracurricular activities. And it is very easy for student athletes to not get enough sleep because of their busy lifestyles, and this will lead to what is known as sleep debt. And we also know that lack of sleep has a negative effect on cognitive function, so being a student, that isn't really going to be great for your academic performance, because obviously if you're absolutely knackered and have a lot of revision or studying to do for that week, then you're obviously not going to be able to access the information that you need, because your brain is just not kind of rested, if that makes sense. And going back to Ma's work, some of the athletes in her studies have set new personal bests and broke long-standing records while studying. And this just shows that you can be good at both athletic performance and your studies if you have the right tools in place to achieve this. And some of the recommendations that she made in her studies have actually been taken on board by the students' coaches so that they could accommodate their athletes' needs for the sleep. Researchers also believe that the reason athletes have better performances as a result of better sleep is because this is when the growth hormone is released. Growth hormone is a hormone which stimulates muscle growth and repair, bone building, and is a fat burner, and ultimately helps aid recovery. And sleep deprivation is also linked to slower releases of this hormone. So obviously more sleep equals more release of this hormone, which obviously is better for you. So how much sleep do we actually need? Well, like I always say, this is kind of like trial and error and will vary depending on each person, as we all have different lifestyles, different body compositions, and so on. However, sleep experts say that we should aim for 7 to 9 hours per night for adults and 9 to 10 for children and teenagers, which is absolutely funny because I definitely need 9 or 10 hours of sleep, which obviously makes me a child. But obviously experiment over a couple of weeks, and if you aim for, let's say, 8 hours and you still feel tired, then obviously that means you're not getting enough, so increase your sleep time. And if you wake up before an alarm, then that's probably a sign that you may be sleeping too much. And getting too much sleep actually has similar effects to sleep deprivation, and one of these is sleepiness, which I think is really funny because the more you sleep, the sleepier you can become. It also leads to anxiety, lack of productivity, and I could bet you anything that you've once experienced a time where you've had a long sleep and you're more like really tired, and you've probably said like, oh, I've slept 11 hours and I still feel tired, like, why isn't that right? Well, this is actually a sign that you've slept too much, and as little as 20 hours of sleep deprivation can have a negative impact on your sport performance, especially in power sports or skill sports which require a high concentration levels or cognitive ability. And which is very obvious because obviously we've said before that there is a link between sleep deprivation and cognitive ability. So the good news is that one restless night won't actually have a negative effect on your performance, but if you are a competitive athlete, then you will need more sleep than the average adult or recreational athlete, as you will be putting your body through more stress and will require more sleep for better recovery. And another athlete which has a lot of sleep is LeBron James, the basketballer, and it is reported that he actually gets about 12 hours a day of sleep, which, when you think about it, is half of his day spent sleeping. So again, this just shows the importance of sleep has on our performance, because he is one of like the best and most successful basketball players there is. So I've kind of explained the consequences of the lack of sleep, but I always find it very beneficial to kind of understand the process or the reasoning behind something and why it happens. And I also feel like it kind of gives us a more like appreciation for the process, if that makes sense. So if we actually look at sleep as the process or the sleep cycle, we can kind of like understand why it happens. So when I worked with my own psychologist a few years ago, I actually found out about him because he came into my school to give a talk on the importance of sleep, and this was because it was coming up to like exam season, and he was kind of like highlighting the impact that sleep has on our brain and how like our brain condenses the information which we learn, and it condenses this when we sleep. So what are these sleep cycles? So when we first fall asleep, we enter what is called non-rapid eye movement sleep, or NREM, and this is divided into 3 stages: NREM1, NREM2 and NREM3. Now stages 1 and stage 2 are light stages of sleep where we can be easily roused, and during stage 1 the body hasn't fully relaxed, even although the body and brain activities start to slow with periods of brief movements and like eye twitches and muscle twitches. Then in stage 2, our heart rate slows down and our body temperature drops. Our brain activity slows further, but there are short bursts of activity. Then in stage 3, this is a more deeper stage of sleep, and some may feel very disorientated when woken from the stage. And this stage is where muscles and our tissues repair. Now, during this stage, the brain activity has an identifiable pattern known as delta waves, and it can often be called the short wave sleep or the delta wave sleep. And although brain activity is reduced, there is some evidence which suggests that deep sleep contributes to insightful thinking, creativity and memory. So if we have been revising for an exam or studying a particular topic, or even in a sporting context, if we're learning a new skill through repetition or, like agility training in tennis or basketball or whatever, this stage is where our brain condenses all of that information so that we can recall it at a later date. And this is very important. Now, the final stage is known as rapid eye movement or REM sleep, and it is during this stage where we dream. And we have vivid dreams in this stage, which explain the increases in brain activity. Now, our bodily movement is very limited, and some people would describe this as paralysed, as your arms and leg muscles actually become temporarily paralysed. And because, obviously movement is minimal, you kind of describe it as being paralysed. And our leg and arm muscles actually become temporarily paralysed because it stops us from acting out our dreams. So obviously, if you're having a nightmare and someone's chasing you with a knife and you're trying to fight back, then it stops you from punching someone in your sleep or kicking someone or injuring yourself in your sleep, which obviously isn't a good thing. And the only thing that really moves is your eyes, hence the name rapid eye movement, and the muscles that obviously help us breathe, and of course your heart, because obviously if your heart stopped then you would be dead. And throughout the stages the brain activity differs, and in the final stage, REM, the brainwave activity becomes closer to wakefulness. This stage is also has some relation to many cognitive functions like memory, learning and creativity, which also explains the increase in brain activity. We can have dreams at any stage in the sleep cycle, but this stage is where our more vivid dreams take place. And as the night goes on, REM stages get longer as we go in and out of the stages. So obviously, I'm pretty sure it goes stage 1, then stage 2, then stage 3, then REM, and then it goes back to stage 1, then stage 2, then stage 3, then stage 4. I'm pretty sure that's how it works, but I don't know why, but something in my head says that's the way it goes, but don't hold me on that because I'm not 100% sure, and obviously I'm not a neuroscientist or anything like that, so I may be wrong, I may be right, who knows. And each stage lasts around 90 minutes, and we need to experience all 4 stages before we can feel properly rested. So a good night's sleep is estimated to have 5 or 6 cycles, so if we do a little bit of math, 90 minutes is an hour and a half, so we'll convert that to a decimal, so that's 1.5, and then if we then times that by 6, we get 9 hours, which, if you aren't sleeping by now, we said earlier was the recommended time to sleep. So moving on to the next question, how can we actually develop a sleep pattern which helps aid our performance and our general mood? And we know that sleep deprivation can have a negative impact on our mental health, most commonly irritability. You'll probably have experienced this when you've had a really horrible night's sleep, and then when you wake up in the morning you just feel like you want to bite someone or punch them because everything they do just really annoys you. We also know that it affects our memory and our learning, which can make us less productive at either work or school, or if we are elite athletes in training. And I've also mentioned the links of sleep deprivation on our health, and it can lead to health issues such as high blood pressure. And we humans are not built for a sleep deprived lifestyle, so one of the ways to develop a winning sleep pattern is to figure out your chronotype. Now, your chronotype relates to whether you are a morning person, which is known as a lark, or a night person, which is a night owl. And researchers have found that if you are a morning person, you may benefit more from a nap during the day and a workout at night. Now, I would consider myself a morning person, as I probably have most energy in the morning and I prefer to do workouts in the morning, but I also prefer a nap during the day, so I could be a lark. I don't think I am a night owl because I'm not as active at night as I am during the day. So unless there's one that's not a lark or a night owl, but it wouldn't surprise me because I am a freak anyway, so I'm definitely going to have to look into that one actually. So back on track and away from that tangent. So if you are a night owl, on the other hand, it is thought to be a good idea that you get bright light in the morning so that you can cue melatonin to help boost your awakening. Night owls also seem to be better to avoid workouts in the evening, and you may be listening to this and think, yeah, that sounds a bit like me, which is good because you can start to develop a plan which works for you around your chronotype if you are a night owl or a lark. And if you are a little bit confused or you don't quite know which chronotype you fall under, then I would probably just say just try different methods and see what works for you. Like, as I've said, I like working out in the morning, but I also like having a nap during the day, which isn't the description of a lark, but I am more of a morning person. But the key really is just make sure that you have sleep as a top priority. And I don't know about you, but I actually get really excited to sleep. Like, it's one of the things that I actually look forward to in the day. And that sounds extremely sad, but it is true. I'll be nothing but honest with you, honestly. So here I've got like a few tips to improve your sleep. So the first one is start a digital detox. And I've mentioned this before in a previous episode about trying to avoid looking at screens before going to bed, as this keeps your brain active. And the reason this keeps your brain active is because blue light is emitted from screens and technology, and this inhibits the hormone melatonin, which signals to our bodies when it is time to sleep. So obviously if it's blocking that hormone, then our bodies aren't going to be like, right, it's time to go to sleep, because it's just, getting fed this constant blue light, which is just keeping it very, very active. And electronic devices overload our memory of the brain, which will just lead to a high thought-filled sleep. So basically you're just going to be constantly thinking about different things when you're sleeping. It's just going to make you extremely restless. So aim for 60 minutes before bed, or do longer if you can. Now, some experts actually say electronics shouldn't actually be in a bedroom because it is far too easy to be drawn into that distraction. Now, I know a lot of people will use their mobile phones as an alarm, and I know I'm really bad for this. I use my phone for my alarm as well, and as soon as my alarm goes off and then I have to log into my phone to turn it off, I just go straight onto social media. I'm like, stop it. So that's what one of my New Year's resolutions for this year is, to stop looking at my phone as soon as I wake up. And going on to these steps, the second one is something that I said in the last episode, and making sure that you have set times to go to bed. And what this does is it will help you keep your body clock on time and promote a natural desire to sleep. This also helps you to keep a strong circadian system, which allows us to shut down properly, entering into a deep sleep and carrying out the functions we need to in order to repair, which keeps us functioning to the best of our abilities. The third tip is to try certain foods before you go to bed. I personally drink warm milk before I go to bed because I feel like it helps me sleep better. And when I worked with my psychologist, he was like, you should try warm milk before you go to bed. And I kind of laughed at him because you automatically think warm milk is more like a baby's drink, but I've been drinking a glass of warm milk before bed for the past almost 4 years now, and I feel like it's actually helped a lot. So that could be something worth trying. There are other foods which are said to aid sleep, like chicken, nuts, eggs, and like I said, milk. Kiwi has also been shown to improve sleep quantity, so maybe considering swapping your morning banana for the hairy fruit. Now, I've never tried a kiwi in my life before. I don't know if it's just the fuzziness of it has kind of put me off, but I actually might try kiwi and see if it helps. Number 4 on the list is do a worry list. And one of the things that can affect our sleep is if we're constantly worrying about things which you may have not been able to do or achieve or whatever. And I kind of touched on this in the previous episode where I said that if we don't achieve all the set tasks that we wanted to do, we can sometimes feel stressed. And doing a worry list will help us be at ease, because writing down what you're worried about kind of just gets it out there. So write down what you're worried about and when you want to address it or achieve it. I don't do this myself. I actually do a to-do list for the following day. I mean, it's kind of the same, really. And I feel like if I don't write these tasks down, then I would just think about doing them for the next day. And the reason that worries keep us awake is that our subconscious mind is trying to draw attention to the conscious mind that there is something unresolved, an unresolved issue that we have. And the subconscious believes that this unresolved issue is a threat to our well-being. So writing down these things kind of helps us to kind of address them and register them in the subconscious mind. The fifth tip is to create a pre-bed ritual, and doing the same routine before bed will get your brain into a rhythm and it will know that it's time to rest. So having a cool room is said to help recover, and I know myself, I don't like my radiator being on in any circumstance, but I just feel like when you have a cooler room, you can kind of like use the covers to like keep you warm and like kind of like snuggle up, which I find is so much better than sleeping in a really warm, like stuffy room. And like I said, try warm milk before bed. Like dairy products are high in tryptophan, I hope I said that right, which helps aid the hormones serotonin and melatonin, which we know help aid sleep. Don't have high caffeinated drinks or high sugar foods because this reduces body temperature as your body has to break them down and process everything. And I also keep a logbook which I do every night before bed, and in it I will write down 3 things I'm grateful for. Now I will do like a full episode on gratitude, but I kind of prefer doing this at night because you have a whole day of things to choose which make you feel grateful. And I know some people prefer doing this in the morning, but the reason I don't like doing it in the morning is you've just woke up, so the only kind of thing you've got to be grateful for is that you've woke up and you're alive. But that's why I prefer doing it at night, because I feel like being in like that sort of like grateful mood helps you like ease into like your sleep kind of. And if you do actually prefer doing gratitudes in the morning, then I have like no problem with that. I personally just don't prefer doing it in the morning. So back on to like track. If you have got this far without falling asleep, then well done you. And I know it's probably quite scientific and there is a lot of information like names and things to process, but I think when it comes to something so important, it's really good to get into the nitty-gritty. So the next thing I will discuss is my favourite, nap time. And I don't know about you, but I actually think naps are better sometimes than a full night's sleep. Like I could go for an hour's nap and generally feel so like energised. And believe it or not, fatigue can affect the brain's ability to send messages to and from parts of the body to control movement. And this impairs the sense of where our limbs are positioned and the awareness of strength of effort, which increases the risk of injury. Now, this has caused high-level football teams to look at how players can improve their sleep and ultimately their performance. For example, Real Madrid have 81 bedrooms at their training facility for players and staff to take a siesta, and Manchester United have even installed sleep pods at club training grounds in Carrington so that their players can take a nap between double sessions. And Dr. Charles Czeisler, I think I've said that right, of Harvard's medical school stated that naps before games or work shifts to boost mental agility and to have 7 to 9 hours of sleep each night. And brain scans have also shown that when a person is up all night, the connection between the prefrontal cortex, the area which is responsible for judgment, and the amygdala, responsible for emotion, are decreased. So all you students that are listening, if you are planning on doing an all-nighter, please don't, it's not going to work. And when we are feeling a little tired, a nap is probably going to be more beneficial for us than if we had sugary foods or grabbed for that coffee. And 20 minutes is actually enough to turn off the nervous system and create a short, sharp recharge to the whole body. A 30-minute nap is enough to improve your memory and learning. And for those who have managed to get 60 to 90 minutes of sleep, new connections can begin to form, which helps creativity. So if you have been unable to grab your 7 to 9 hours of sleep, a good way is to set aside some time for a nap. We know that 90 minutes is the time of one sleep cycle where you experience all 4 stages, and from personal experience, if I had an early morning session, I always go for like a 60 to 90 minute nap. So I could go to bed at 9 o'clock the previous night, and I like to get up really early, so if I have a session at 6 a.m, then I'll probably wake up at like 4, and this is just so that I have everything ready and I've done everything, like eat breakfast and make sure it's kind of like digested, and I can do like some sort of pre-pool. And if we like calculate how much I've been in bed, it's only been 7 hours, but that won't like take into consideration the time it actually takes me to go into sleep. And obviously, being an athlete, I'm going to have to need more. So I could train from 6 to 7:30 in the morning, then get back about 8 o'clock. I will also have like a small snack or a meal to replenish energy, and then I will normally just sleep until 10 or longer if I can. And if I have classes in the morning, then I obviously can't really, but I always try to fit something in to make up for the 9 hours. And another point to make as well is you can use, there's like so many apps now that you can track your sleep. Now I use Sleep Cycle. I can't remember if it was like already on my phone or if I had to download it, but it's really good, and I'm pretty sure it's like £100 for the premium for the full year, which actually isn't that bad. I think it turns out to be like $8.50 per month or something. But that's, if you're wanting to like really look into your sleep, then I would recommend downloading that app, because it shows you how like deep your sleep is, and also requires like snoring and sleep talking. So if, for example, I do have like an early morning session and it says I've only slept for, I don't know, like 6 hours or something, then I will try and get as long a nap as possible, just so like it adds up to 9 hours, or at least as close as I can. Like sometimes I do have 2 naps in a day, which I don't regret one bit, and I'll be honest with you. So I do hope you find this episode quite interesting and educational to some degree, and not too boring. I really hope it didn't put you to sleep. How funny would it be if I actually was talking about sleep and actually put you to sleep? And another thing is, I'm actually recording this episode the day after I had an awful night's sleep, so thumbs up for that. And to recap, sleep is a very important part of our lives, whether we are elite athletes or just like the general population. And I think after I worked with my psychologist a few years back, it really opened my eyes to the importance of it, and I kind of like saw it in like a completely different way. And we kind of like take sleep for granted in a way, because we just assume it's part of being human. Like we just assume that we have to go to sleep at night every single day, but we actually, when we sit down and actually look at why we do it and the effect it has on us, it completely like changed the way we look at it. And I think it kind of like helps us like look at it in a different light in a way. And I know improving my own sleep pattern has had the world of good. I may not have broken many records like the students in Sharima study group, but I am breaking my own personal best. So in some ways I am like a reflection that getting good sleep works. And with that, I will close the episode, as I really need a sleep. Just kidding. And in serious though, I do hope you enjoyed this episode. It was quite an informative one, but I hope you got something from it, even if it was like just something small, or even if I like made you laugh. I mean, I hope I made you laugh. And with that, I say thank you for listening, stay safe, stay positive, and I will see you on the next one.